Okay, so this is an examiner's favorite. Draw and explain the bonding that takes place between sodium chloride. Now, the first thing we need to be thinking about is this is sodium and chloride. Sodium is a metal. Chloride is the compound that is produced, and it is also a non-metal. And so in this case, we know that this is a metal reacting with a non-metal. And so straight away, we should be thinking ionic bonding. Ions, ionic means charges are involved. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're only going to show the outer electrons only. We're going to draw a dot and cross diagram to make sense of this. So Na is in group 1. Group 1 means it has 1 electron in its outer shell. Chlorine has 7. It's in group 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so what happens is that this sodium goes, thank you very much, and it's lost. So this sodium electron, outer electron, is lost, and it is gained by the chlorine. So therefore now they both undergo an ionic bond attraction. So because the sodium loses 1 electron, it's no longer an atom, it's an ion. So it becomes Na plus. With the outer electron gone, it's now bare. There is no outer electron, so it has an overall positive charge. And if you then see the chlorine has gained 1 electron, so now it's going to become a charge again. Let's keep it consistent and let's make this blue. And we can see that this one becomes a negative charge. Now, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of course, it's taken 1 from the sodium. So now it has its 7 electrons plus 1, 8. And there's been a transfer of an electron. It's no longer sharing like in covalent bonding. There is a transfer of electrons. Okay? So in your answer, then you need to write something along the lines of sodium atoms lose 1 electron, chlorine atom gain 1 electron, there is a transfer of electrons, and then over here, interestingly, the atom now becomes an ion, right? So notice that when you've produced your ionic bond, the sodium ion has a positive 1 charge. And notice that now the chlorine over here is now chloride, okay? And the nonmetal always changes its name when the ionic bond is formed. So it goes from a chlorine atom to a chloride ion. This is very important, and it's something that is picked up on exam papers and exam mark schemes. So please be aware of that. The next one is the following. Let's do the second question here. Put this to the side. Right, so we have the following. What do we have? Describe and explain the bonding that takes place in magnesium oxide. So magnesium is a metal, and we're doing a non-metal here as well with oxide, which comes from the element oxygen. Magnesium is a group 2 atom, so you know it has 2 electrons in its outer shell, and oxygen is a group 6 atom, and it has 6 electrons in its outer shell. Okay, so how does that look? So let's do that first of all. So Mg 2, and then you've got oxygen, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And quite simply, each of these electrons are going to be gained by the oxygen atom. And so what you should draw, if you were to ask were to be asked about the outer electrons and dot and cross diagrams is again your brackets. Mg loses its 2 electrons, which are these ones over here. And so it's now empty. And so you can write a 2 plus charge. And oxygen becomes as follows. So we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from oxygen, and then the 2 that have been gained from magnesium, like that, and then you get a 2 minus charge. So the oxygen becomes an oxide. Okay? And in this case, this time you have to be careful because now you have to talk about the charges being a 2 plus and a 2 minus. So you would write something like this. So the magnesium loses 2 electrons. They transfer these electrons to oxygen, to 2 oxygen atoms, that should be. Okay, to 2 oxygen electrons. So the oxygen then gains 2 electrons, and in fact, let's just take that. This doesn't make sense actually. So they transfer these electrons, oxygen, which gains 2 electrons from those magnesium electrons. Now they both have charges. Magnesium ion becomes a 2 plus charge, oxide ion becomes a 2 minus charge. And the last one is a bit more trickier now. So in the last one, what you do is the following. So let's now look at this one over here. So I'm not going to write the whole explanation out because I think you get the idea, but we'll show it because the drawing is quite important here, and that's more useful at this moment of time. So aluminium is in group 3. Okay, so it has 3 electrons in its outer shell. And you've got chlorine, which is a group 7 molecule, and it has 7 electrons in its outer shell. Okay, so what happens over here? How can we get these charges to balance? So you need to know a little bit about charges, and if you look at my previous video on how to distinguish between atoms and ions, it becomes a little bit more clearer. But assuming that you've understood that and you know the difference between atoms and ions, we'll just say over here that aluminium, because we know it's a group 3 element, it's going to have a 3 plus charge. And we know that chlorine is in group 7, so it has a -1 charge. So we need to balance this 3 plus charge. The only way you can do that is to have 3 chlorides. So we've got another chloride and another chloride. So now I've got 3 overall -3 charges here. I've got the aluminium, which is also a +3 charge. So now these cancel each other out. And so we know, therefore, that the molecular formula for this would be AlCl3. Okay? So therefore, I can then work out and start doing my dot and cross diagram. Now be careful here because you might think that, okay, so if I just take one of these, let's use a different color, and put it here, everything is all good to go. Well, that's not true because we've still got these two, haven't you? So where will they go? Well, they will go to the other chlorines. So we've got 7 over here, and we've got 7 over here. And so this one will go to one of these chlorines, and this one will go to the other one. Whoops. Right there. And there you have it. So you've now got 3 of these electrons from the aluminium going to 3 different chloride ions. So in your answer, you would say aluminium loses 3 electrons and chlorine atom gains 1 electron each from the aluminium. Okay, so what you'd have then is you would have your chlorine written as Cl with your 7 electrons. Okay, and to show 3 of them, you don't need to actually write 3. You can just write a minus charge, and you can put a massive 3 in front like so to show that you've got 3 lots of chlorides. And you've also got our aluminium, which we know loses its 3 electrons, so now it doesn't have any electrons there, and you have a 3+ charge. All right, thank you for listening.